Hey, what is going on, everyone? Astrologer Eric Rosen here, and welcome to Celestial Conversations from Chaos to Clarity. This is the weekly horoscope that I do on Wednesdays to help escort you through the chaos with all the Pisces up and down extreme energies and the collective and what's going on personally in our subconscious and the past. And I can feel like certain parts of reality are ending, and they are, but I think it's a good thing. We're going to talk about all that. What's the story going on? What are the innovative steps that you can take in your life to create that sustainable change and kind of like rise above the storm of all this stuff that's like going on? And I'd say, be your own co-creator. So this is for the week of March 5th through March 11th of 2025. Thanks for being here. We are in the build up to eclipse season. So this is a really interesting week, to say the least, but we'll talk about what it's all about. But before I get into that, I do want to say, if you want to get your hands on that natal chart ebook that I did to learn more about the natal chart placements from yours truly, my interpretation of the sun, the moon, Chiron, the planets in the different houses and the different zodiac signs, you can check that out. That link is down below. And of course, if you want to get your own personal astrology reading to find out on a deep personal level, or go through all your charts and your natal chart and the transits, and we'll pull up some deeper layer charts too, kind of like those hidden subconscious layers like solar arc and progress charts, and just the different tools that I use to take a more personal approach to help people find their way forward. I'm all about helping people get unstuck and get to creating actually what they want, especially if it's around purpose, passion, clarity. So here we go. So, this is a really interesting week because in some ways it could feel like a dud, maybe in terms of like the excitement of things, because we're not in the full transitional states that are coming with the eclipses coming starting on the 14th with that lunar eclipse that's coming in Virgo. You got Neptune that's going to be leaving Pisces for the first time and going into Aries in our lifetime. Neptune's been here since 2011, and so it's not going to stay. But, with all this energy shifting, I think the big thing that I'm looking at, why I feel like it could feel like a dud, because the sun knows it's approaching Saturn. It's going to start illuminating these territories of sun crossing Saturn and Pisces. And so, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, on some levels, it's just being spiritually humble and just putting one foot in front of the other, and just knowing that anything that you're manifesting and creating in your life is actually coming from a very divine place where you can actually have a deep sense of spiritual gratitude for God bringing those opportunities into your life. And so things flow better, the reality goes better. You're going to be more protected by anything going on in the world or in your personal life that could feel like it's like ending or not working out or slipping away. And it's like not trying to like stop it. This might sound gruesome, but it reminds me, like, if you've ever seen the footage of when JFK was shot and his wife Jackie, like they said she was like trying to like reach for his skull or something, or try to stop it from getting worse, and it's like he'd already been like shot in like the neck and the head. So it's like this thing where it's like you have to look at like what is the thing that maybe that we're all potentially looking at doing and maybe being seduced into some subconscious sabotage, because it feels like this allure of things to go initiate and take some action on something that we're trying to protect and not let it slip away, and we can't like revive it. Like there's no spiritual life support for it if it's like slipping away, especially if it's like coming from the ego with this Venus retrograde in Aries, which I'm going to get way deeper into and how that goes back to 2017. But also, this is the final week before Mercury goes retrograde as well in Aries. And so it's not about using the ego or initiating something brand spanking new out of nowhere, like the next big thing, like, trying to become our own like movie star of our life or something. This is more of like a spiritual component of like how we approach life. It's not really like getting like too fancy. Like even with the South Node in Virgo, it's like not even trying to like create more of a harvest, to create more things like coming in. It's like, sure, wish upon a star and cast the wish and the dream and the vision of things that come in. Like, please do that, with all this Pisces energy. But at the same time, it's Saturn is going to be running kind of like a decontamination chamber a little bit. It's kind of like a metal detector, type thing, where it's like checking to make sure that you're not bringing in any like old heavy shit from the past that actually it's demanding that you release, so that you focus on like the spiritual parts that really matter. So this could get really deep, especially with Venus retrograde in Aries and the sign that it rules of Taurus, of Uranus being there, because that's what's way different from 2017 that I'll mention, is like, this is about our value systems just as individuals, and anything that's not working out, money, projects, relationships especially, got to double check the spiritual value system. What's the writing that's been on the wall of kind of inviting us to step up our game in a more consistent fashion that is going to be better building blocks, just for the future of where our reality is going and what's best for, the relationships that are meant to be around us. It's definitely not a time to chase, run after things. I want to say too, there could be this other component too to start the week, where it's like Pluto and Mercury are sextiling. And so it's like Pluto and Aquarius, it's fully out of its shadow. So we're in this really unknown territory collectively. But Mercury, that messenger planet, that mental, trying to figure things out, but it's in shadow, it's in Aries. So it's keeping it simple, using your attention span and what you're focused on to something that is actually exciting and connecting to people, where you understand where you fit into the world. It's where there can be an equality measure of having conversations with people that are humble, maybe even vulnerable, especially those closer relationships. Talk about the values, talk about the wounds, the sensitivities. It's really tough to have real conversations on social media. So that's where it could get even hazier, although I think some people could probably use it for a positive gain, with this transit to start the week. But it's about it being more straightforward and not getting into the weeds and keeping things complicated. You can escalate that, start the week too, to any situation in your life where it's just okay, this is what it is, and this is just what I have to do. Okay, it's a complex situation, but that's where anxiety and fear comes in if we're trying to understand all of it. And then actually unfortunately, it's a self-undoing of too much crazy neuroses of trying to figure things out, that it's a self-undoing where we become a coward, and then we're not taking action on the things that are actually pretty simple, where it's just put the effort and the energy into what matters, put one foot in front of the other. Knowing thy value systems is really important. So this is not a time to be looking at too many different possibilities. This is Neptune finishing the end of Pisces, and so it's not going to finish this week, but I mean, we do have to remark and on that of how deep this can go into deep zones of karmic spiritual releasing, of surrender. It could be of past life things that can get really foggy of wait, did that really happen? Is that really past life? Or this could be a really good time for mirror work, journaling, meditations, talking things out with people if you're having mental struggles of understanding things, because that Neptune in Pisces can actually help us see both sides of it. Yeah, the past was hard, but where were the bright spots too? Same thing where it's yeah, there's some things ending in our personal lives and collectively, but it's what are those things though that were actually divine, and actually beautiful about it? And actually, I think we can start to get more of a truth march, towards actually seeing those things instead of the distortion of the subconscious mind with all these things going on. The moon this week is going to be going through that first quarter square as it's going through Gemini. It's going to go through Gemini, Cancer, Leo this week. So I think this first quarter square is going to deal a lot with the behavioral aspect of things. It crossing that Jupiter that was squared by this new moon that we just had in Pisces. It's kind of like it's a check-in, and it could be like a sensitive one, but like the mental sensitivities to not ignore it and like push it aside and actually check in and go, how are my patterns, my habits, my routines? Like if we hit the reset button right now and we all of a sudden like flipped over to this new crazy chapter that we're heading into collectively and personally these next few months, would you feel like you had your shit together? Would you feel like you had your ducks in a row? Like, are things like making sense in your life? And then I think the rest of the week, it can actually feel very beautiful and fertile and fun and free and easier. And like, that's for like the one spiritual one percenters, you could say, because there's a lot of astrology that could pull us into this woe is me, worry, victimhood. It's too heavy, especially Sun, Saturn. It's like, but it deals at a deep subconscious level of like, are you okay with the accountability and responsibility of like whatever is going on in your life, whether it's like something ending or, it could be just getting over fears of, believing in a dream possibility of like things like getting better from where they're at, or just, because this could deal with delays and stoppages, like too, like actually seeing that, if you've been working towards something, but it's like stalled out, and this Mercury and this Venus retrograde in Aries are like stalling things like even more. Jupiter, Uranus are still in their shadow. It's like it's okay. It's like, what are the soul level lessons that you're meant to learn? And that's actually where I think like getting the past life regressions, which by the way, I do those, but I also tell people to, like, I think it's always cool to like check out the QHHT practitioners too, like through Dolores Cannon's like school of study of like hypnotherapy and past life regressions. And some of them probably do future life progressions too, although I do those as well, but I don't know that we're in the territory where that, is the main focus right now. I think it's more just a reminder to ourselves that we have a future identity that we are maturing into, and it's very much going to be fully on board when Saturn, Neptune meet in Aries this year. And, we get a lot less focus on the endings of the Pisces energy, although that will still be there. But this karmic wrap-up piece is really the biggest piece of like what's been coming up in the past and dealing with that to make sure any fears, phobias, just irrational things, like it's actually celebrating those discomforts and sensitivities if you're not sure what they are, because it's actually like very unconscious and deep stuff that's sensitive and weird, but actually you feel lighter and you feel more connected spiritually by like dealing with it. So Pisces, there's so many entry points. Yeah, past life regressions, journaling, meditations, all the things that I've been mentioning, even prior to this video, but it's like, we have to like do it still. It is Saturn and Pisces. That Sun's going to very much like activate that. And it's going to be hard because like on the one extreme, it could be people being like, this really sucks. And it's like, well, what are you doing to make it better? Like what disciplines, what strategies, how much authority do you feel like you have around these sensitivities versus victimhood? And that could even, some people could even place that way outside themselves, especially as it connects to any type of media, whether it's social media, mainstream media, that the world is like taking a broken snow globe right now and like turning it into like, that's the reality, that it's all cracked and fracturing, when it's like, actually, this is one of the most spiritually beautiful fucking abundant times like ever, but it is a stop and smell the roses like type of thing to realize that. And, for me, like how that's been coming up, and this is where I'll get deeper into this Venus retrograde in Aries, because it's a big one, right? Like it's a big deal. Venus only does this every year and a half. And it's a 40-day, 40-night cycle. It started on the 1st. And so we're going into the first 10 days of April, like with this sucker, And so, yes, it deals with, could be stalls, hesitations in relationships, like war energy of Aries, combat challenges, me versus you. But I think what we're looking for in this space is getting over the relationship challenges by expression, having conversations, but it's going to be a lot of like inner reflection, especially with Mercury about to go retrograde, where it's like, know what the message is and like the simple, straightforward piece of like the direction, and like come to an understanding of where you want to move within yourself, and then communicate that in your partnerships. And then it just like keeps it more clean instead of the messiness that could be like codependency from hell if you're like hanging on to something that's not working, or you're not trying to work it out if you're in a relationship. And I would make it the lowest last action priority in the world to start like a brand new relationship that just you don't know enough about. Like they're pretty new or they're brand new. Not a time for like thirst seeking of some desire in that way, but this piece about the stopping and smelling the roses, I think, comes up. I mean, some of it for me personally is where Venus retrogrades like hitting in my chart, my 12th house in Aries. And, if you know where that's at for you, like where Venus is moving through your natal chart, feel free to pop it down below in the comments. Always happy to hear who's in the know with their astrology. But for those that aren't, that's what those links are down below for, to learn more. And I'll even like throw down the one for the Astrology School for anyone that wants to really just learn how to do astrology. But we haven't seen Venus retrograde in Aries since 2017. It was March and April. And so it was really weird because I looked back, and anyone can do this, right? It's like, look back at what was going on. You go to your photos in your phone, social media, like emails, just like something that's got like a time date stamp to it to get that golden thread to be like, okay, I was doing that then. And then the memories start to come back of what you were doing, thinking, dealing with. And so for me, it was really interesting because 8 years ago, right? Because Venus retrogrades in the same sign every 8 years. Like, it's actually when I first started studying astrology. But I was also like in what was going to be a dead end job that I wasn't passionate about. I was kind of like lazy with it, like very like Venus like retrograde in Aries, right? Where it's like you've got to find like deeper motivation for things that you value to actually like take action and put the effort in. And I wasn't really willing to do it. The boss wasn't really willing to do it. It was the last time that I like worked in the construction industry. And so here I was like transitioning my value systems to go in a new Aries direction with astrology. And then after that transit is when a lot of things started like shifting. I went did an ayahuasca ceremony. I was studying astrology. Synchronicities in my life were happening left and right. Spiritual realizations, epiphanies, even while I was still at that job. And so it's like you can go back and look and see what was going on back then. For me, it was setting up a beautiful trajectory to go on that completely changed my life. And so I think this can be that for people too, if they allow it. Now, the difference is back in 2017, A didn't have Chiron in Aries, right? So it's like, now you've got to go through the humble sensitivity of the healing in order to like get to that. Like, you only get initiated into the things that you want if you're basically being the thing that is, the identity and taking the actions of actually like what you want, and it'd say it like this: you can't be a whiny bitch, like the victimhood piece is actually pushing away the goods that want to come into life for those changes. And what we had back then was Jupiter in Libra, and we also had Uranus basically conjunct this like Venus retrograde. So it's like back then it was like, yes, there was going to be beautiful expansions in that Libra-like energy with relationships and beauty and life becoming more artistic, but it was going to be a crazy change in a new direction because it was on top of Uranus basically in Aries, right? But now it's like nothing in Libra to talk about, and now you got Chiron with Venus, and now the ruler of the other sign that Venus rules, the sign that Venus rules of Taurus, you do have Uranus there. So it's like, it's really interesting because it brings up shades of what was going on back then, and things can feel eerily similar. But the big difference is going to be, do we know how to be the wounded healer that takes actions? It's actually being of service from a place that's going in just like a very logical direction that ideally is something that you've already been sustaining and you're just like continuing that spiritual walk, or you're finally like listening to like the church bells, the trumpets, calling you to like do the work that you've been pushing aside, like that brave heart work of that healing energy, that your possessions, your money, your relationships, anything that you try to like hold on to, that the universe is just going to potentially at a moment's notice, like, just wash away completely. And in some ways it's trying to wash away a lot of this energy, things from our subconscious, to where we don't even like need those old stories, those old narratives are not making sense of the new world that we're going into. This is what I'm talking about, where it's like, it's a weird week that it may feel like things are basic, but it's also like a fuck ton of release stuff that's preparing for an even bigger reality release when that lunar eclipse comes next week on the 14th in Virgo with that South Node. So in essence, it's like we can get some really good things like starting to come in, and maybe some things have already been coming in, but it's going to come from, do you know your value, your skill set? Do you know how to like build bridges with people? Do you know how to just be consistent and see the writing on the wall that's been on the wall? It's been on the wall, it's been on the wall. It hasn't went anywhere. That any place that feels like trapped, delayed, it's kind of like, some of it could be acknowledging like, what did you miss, like for the lesson, but then it could also be, okay, I can't go back in time, but like, what can I do now? And it's almost like you have to initiate that next step that could come through a relationship or a reflection or a synchronicity to like help take you to safer shores, because like the lifeboats are out everywhere. Like that's the thing, is like, none of this is happening like to you from destroying your life in any area, whether it's a frustration, a struggle, can't figure it out, trying to fix it. Like there's lifeboats everywhere, like if you're in a struggle place, to get you to safety. And so then it's like you acknowledge the safety and the gratitude of it, and then you look and actually go, well, can I just do what has been like solid and working, and not like freak out about what's not working, and not try to like, it would be like the Titanic is sunk, and then someone does you do a first pass in a boat, and you're trying to like save people and trying to connect with people that are like basically dead. This is a fucked up analogy, but it's like basically like some people are going to be icy like that. It's Pluto and Aquarius. It's not Pluto and Leo. It's not all sunshiny, right? It's like that coldness, that disconnectedness that some people can have, especially it could be through, stuff going on in the world, and, groups of people, and who you like and don't like, and connect with and don't connect with, and social media. But it's like, why waste effort trying to connect with things that are dying off, and people that you can't save, you can't change their minds, right? I think that's a key hidden element here, is like, if we're using any of this energy to try to like change someone's mind about something when they need a new motor, they need a new transmission, they need a new chassis, like they need so much overhaul done on the metaphor of them being like a vehicle, that you're wanting to just like go in and like tighten a couple of like bolts or something, and just give a quick tune up of like some like, life advice or service or something. And then is that a projection or a distraction of something to tune up in your own life? Because I think the biggest little subtle, innocent, but it's like the white lie that we're not like dealing with, is like everyone has some type of advice that they want to give to someone, and wants to think that they know things that are going on, and that it makes you smart because you have an opinion. But it's like, take that energy with all of this Pisces energy and all of this Aries energy, and work on thyself. Take all the stuff back from the politics and the media, work on thyself, And then like through the clarity, through the fog of that understanding, even though it's not all going to be understood right now, it just makes sense, the people that you are able to connect with and help, because the things that you're doing are of service because you want to help. You're detached from the outcome, but it also just makes sense for the person that you're being of that wounded healer. It's like everyone seems like they want either some type of positive change right now, or they want something that they used to value to like stay in their life that no longer has any currency or value to it. So it's like those are probably going to be the highlighted areas of like heal that and work on that, and like work with a divine sense of there's purpose behind anything that's meant to be releasing, and also like anything that you're working towards that just like makes sense, and like infuse that purpose, infuse a path of service like into that. Like this is, you know, some of this astrology could sound like it's on repeat, but when you have a cluster of everything at the end of the zodiac and the beginning in Aries and Pisces, there's only so many things like going on. It's like a lot of condensed energy. You know, you have things a little spread out, Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus and Taurus and Jupiter in Gemini, but you know, these energies are asking us to like just be consistent with like what makes sense, and actually see that the power that we're all like looking for, that's deeper strength to get over like complex, crazy fears about just like anything going on that most of the time probably is irrational. Like we get over it by doing the deep spiritual diving work. Like it's not going to come from probably a puzzle, a program, you know. If anything, anything on the outside is just meant to be a supercharger to spiritually efficiently get you to a deeper inner reflection of yourself, what's going on in your inner world subconsciously, right? Knowing that if you're consuming media that doesn't make sense for your life and where you're wanting to go, you're just trying to be in the know, like that's going to be part of the delay factor for your healing. And also, it may seem like that's just spending time doing this thing, but it's actually all adding up energetically. And so anywhere that you do feel stuck in life, it's like taking a very honest, rational look and go, how are you spending your time? Like, what are you focused on? Like, if there is a struggle, it's going, well, ideally you would be like taking yourself to spiritual boot camp and not having any distractions. And it's not that it's going to be perfect. That's not the point. It's more so just like, can you observe yourself like doing that and seeing if there's any sabotage, addictive tendencies, and then taking a breath and going, okay, I'm going to get out of these things. I'm not going to stay in these like karmic loops, because that's what's weird too, is like anything that we're doing right now that can seem like destructive or doesn't like make sense, things that we're thinking about, things that we're feeling, again, could be like a past life thing, right? But what's nice is that the past life stuff, and I learned this very recently, it's like it does connect to a lot of like the past childhood, which they always did, right? Like I always knew that it's like, yeah, the past connects to past lives as well of what's happened in this life, but how important those first 30 years of life are, like pre-Saturn return, like, and through the Saturn return that everyone goes through age 28 to 30, it's like those key elements, you know, of like deep inner reflection and journaling and meditating like on these areas. And it's not about like going on like a wild hunt for it to look a certain way or a certain outcome, or some sensational thing of like, look at me, I'm a healer and I'm all this, and like, as I've mentioned before, like turning spirituality into like a fucking novelty. It's just what is that next Poseidon's ocean wave of Pisces like carrying into the shoreline? Is it a rough current of something from the past? Okay, take a breath and sit with that energy. Like, anyone that says that they don't have like time or space to like take a breath and like reflect on like what's like coming up, that would be a really close examination of some really deep beliefs of this reality, to see like where did that come from. Because part of this lunar eclipse that's coming in Virgo very much is like a big deep karmic release of the rat race energy of just like the over day-to-day busyness and schedules and routines, always keeping ourselves busy, where it's like there's a payoff to that. It's like dopamine or adrenaline, but it's like the best spiritual payoffs like we miss if we don't like take more time to appreciate things and go deeper into these spiritual, essence of things too. And also, my guides are saying like it's okay to ask for help of changing your state, like too. Like it doesn't all have to be this hard, deep spiritual work and releasing and it's all serious. It's like the nice thing about this energy is you can choose your vibe and your state, that it's not like putting lipstick on the pig, and trying to like fake a glow up or something like that. It's more so just like where you could say it's giving yourself like a karmic break, where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of karma and old stuff and old energy like breaking down, but it's like, do you want to like be the person like freaking out and maybe freaking out on people? It seems like more people are like fighting and freaking out on each other and like people. And it's like, or do you want to go, well, like if this astrologer dude saying like, we're heading into some beautiful territory, it's just, there's just certain things that have to end. And where are we ending things for ourselves, like personally too, even if it's in silence and it's not, being like talked about, because, we can be vulnerable with people that in our communities and things like that, but it's like not everyone has to know like what's necessarily happening until we understand the value of the service, of the utility that like it brings. And so it's like these releases, if all this is going to be okay and we're meant to be doing this, then like it is okay to like get over the fear hump of Pluto in Aquarius, of like having fun like with these things too. So on a lesser note, Lilith is like going through Virgo this week and Libra, and going to oppose all this Aries energy with the Venus retrograde and Mercury that's in shadow in Aries. And so like just watch for the temptation of like going into those Virgo busy, just gonna do the activity or whatever I want, be stimulated. And reminds me of like the show Beavis and Butthead, when he used to like just get all hopped up on candy and just like freak the fuck out and just like but it's like people doing that over like politics, or like something that they think is the reality that's not the reality. Or it could be like the measles outbreak, which I can't speak to that fully because I haven't tuned in fully, but there's a part of me that is like looking at it and going, okay, well, there's probably some weird shit going on here. Like it's not like just this pure health related thing. Like there's something that's not factual, South Node and Virgo with it, going into this North Node in Pisces energy that is still very close to Neptune, and that sun is going to be crossing next week, and it's going to be a whole another different horoscope that we're talking about, because like I think it's going to kind of like be a surprise wake up of like, no, we weren't just going to spend the rest of eternity just like watching and fighting about politics or health issues or gas prices or whatever it is. Like eventually things like do reach the end of the tracks and the end of the line, and we're going to start having like way deeper conversations, more disclosure energies, as I've been like alluding to. It's like these things. And so on the most positive of notes, like yeah, it's like taking our private time with this energy, but I think it's also like can be like a time of connection for the people that are just like already released, most of or sectors of like that old programming and old reality, where it's like we can get glimpses into like what it's like to come in connection with each other and like higher vibrations and things like that, and like feel like that essence. You can feel it in the right connected people. You can feel it just like stopping and smelling the roses, as I mentioned. But part of the right people thing too is like, it's not even about rejecting someone based upon their opinion or where they're going or their value systems or their past, where they've been, where they're going, none of that. Like, actually, it's having compassion and forgiveness for those things. It's more so like the right people would be, don't go initiating and like being like, I'm so lonely, or I need this, or like I need that. It's like what is, if you're feeling like lonely or isolated, you know, right now, or in like mental turmoil, it's like, what is God trying to show you? What is the divine and creator trying to show you that you're like missing and suppressing and pushing aside because like you don't like it and you feel like it doesn't fit like the vision of how it like should look? And then it's honestly this energy, especially that sun crossing Saturn, it really isn't about facing going, do you even know what the vision is? Do you even have like the concept of like how you would even want it to look in the dream vision? Like, is that construct actually clear? It comes up so much with, you know, with people, like, get clear on like up here, like what's the vision? Because if we're just reacting to the lower vibrational densities of what's manifested, but it's not even the thing that's like the new manifestation, it's the manifestations that are going away, that we're just reacting to those things. Well, it's chaos, it's turmoil, it's, you know. And I think on the most like subtle of levels, in the in-between, you know, zones of maybe some people that are freaking out about the reality versus people that could be like spiritually bypassing, me like, oh, it's all good, but then they're not actually like paying attention themselves, you know, and like they need a wake up call too, like those extremes. I think the middle ground is just, you know, tracking like what the mind is doing is the biggest like part of this, because it can be very easy to get distracted into the ego of a bunch of activities and a schedule and like things to do, and then like missing out on the spiritual beauty, even though that's all happening, but like we're not getting to experience the quality of that, the deep appreciation of that we got this far. It's like, I think it was this weekend I was like reflecting, and it was like, wow, like, because for me, it's like where I really started to integrate the spiritual awakening was 2018, although it happened 2017, but it was like back then, you know, that etheric vision and how things really work in the universe didn't match with the reality of the matrix. But it's like now enough of it's breaking down where it's like, oh shit, actually now finally that stuff's starting to make sense. And you could see it in whether it's like people having more open spiritual conversations about what's really going on, people wanting more love, change, compassion, connection, empathy, looking at a direction that's like meaningful, purposeful, sustainable, satisfying, gratifying. It could be looking at like the places where we just like get out of our own way. You know, it's like these deeper introspective places. It's kind of like where a lot of the world is becoming, actually, believe it or not, ready for change. It's just the uncertainty of like where it's going. And so finally that etheric map that can come through a spiritual study of self and the world can actually start to make sense as this old matrix reality is like breaking down. So it's like the realization, like, holy shit, like this, this is the moment, like this is what I've been working towards like since 2018, where it's like starting to click. And you know, I am a Mars Venus conjunction of Pisces too, and so it's like this time feels very familiar to me, where it's like how to do the spiritual like dance and like walk of life to create and manifest and exist in this reality. And that this feels more like my wheelhouse, you know, where it's like things are starting to make more sense for the growth and trajectory I'm going on. And so everyone's going to be in a little bit different position energetically, like with their past, where they've been, you know, like the timing of dealing with these karmic dispositions, you know, and releases, and maybe choosing not to deal with it. And that's a whole nother animal of how that looks. But like doing that, what I can tell you just from my 6th line in human design, this role modeling piece, is like when you do this like Pisces work, especially with the year of the snake, especially where the nodes are at, eventually like things just do get better. And it's just like, oh, it's happening. And it's like, it's not from force, it's not from ego, it's not from, some fucked up place of trying to fix something or cover up a wound or even being confused about what we want and then trying to run around and do different things. It comes from clarity and like, hey, universe, this is what I want. And then just like tuning in to the present moment and just like doing the best to not let the ego like lead, but like the ego and the soul combine to form that higher self connection to where we're led in a more spiritual fashion in life. Like, it's actually not that complicated. Like, we make it that way, like the mind does that shit right now, especially. So it's getting clarity of like where to go, the details, and then it's going, okay, like what's getting in the way, and then how are you going to deal with those blocks subconsciously, the past lives, the self-sabotage, the addictions, the patterns. Can you do it on your own? A lot of the astrology points to like it's best to have some spiritual connection. So it's like the people that connect are going to be the ones best suited for you to like honor the value of what you want, to go in the direction that connects you spiritually to get what you want, that there's no like hidden agendas, hidden enemies, hidden conflict in value systems, or people around you just like keeping things like cheerful and stimulating, but it's like not. And it's like actually paying attention to these real deep spiritual issues that we came here to grow, we came here to evolve. So doing those things is like what slowly leads to the manifestation process that movies like The Secret fucked everyone on, because they were just like, oh, just do this magic devil shit. And it's like, it's devilish because it's not actually honoring like the really deep karmic piece of this, of like, no, it's not about running around and just doing something and initiating and manifesting and being a piece of shit and just being greedy. Like, it's actually about manifesting something that aligns with your soul's code of like where you're meant to go. And there could be lots of Pisces and Aries layers of like what that is for people depending on where we're at, but it is initiating those things to do that healing work and to keep doing it. I have a lot of empathy for people with where they're at right now, especially anything that feels stuck, feels like it's like a relationship situation, and I think that we have to have empathy on the feminine, but also the masculine piece is like, okay, what do we do with this, and how do we sort of initiate the responsibility that this is happening for us, like not to us, like to resist any temptation, especially if it's like for attention, like victimhood or feeling like you can't like do something. This energy could bring up all sorts of shades of where we break down, sabotage, like slip, maybe even like inner childhood patterns, right? Where it can feel scary to evolve and like step up and like show up with maybe something that feels like it's like pulling us like back. I think that's like a lot of what people are talking about right now. It's like there's just something that feels like it's like pulling me down or like pulling me back, or it's in me, or it's energy around me, it's a demon, or it's this person or this situation, like at work. And so it's like it's best for us to keep like working on those subconscious stories, anything that feels victimizing, because it sabotages the chances of like all the numerous different ways like out where we're gonna get out of it. But it's like, do you do it and heal and grow from it kicking and screaming, or do you do it from a place of feeling like a magical motherfucker where you're also manifesting a destined aligned life through this process to become the person that is needed, very much so, to be of service into this new reality that we're going into, that in some ways may not look that different depending on, if you're already doing that work, but on other elements, it's going to probably be a lot of growth into it also, like evolving from already doing that work and already being on that destined path if you're on that. And it's going to look different slowly, little by little, in a good way, but also the best part is how much different it's going to feel, where it's like, fuck yes, like we made it, we're making it, like we're going to win this thing, like the light is winning, like the children, the next generations, we're going to be okay, we're figuring this thing out. Like it didn't look good for a while, but like we're going to be okay. And if surprises, shit happens, remember the broken snow globe analogy. Like this is Pluto in Aquarius, this is power to the people. It's kind of a cliche saying a little bit at this point, like a bumper sticker analogy, but it is like an equality piece to go, we sure would do a lot of good in the world and innovate if we all just started to face whatever the fears are that are coming up, and to make sure that it's not a projection onto something outside of us. It's especially disconnecting from the actual true roots of the problem, that it's like we're making it too complex. You just got to come back to that present moment, yo. But if you want to get your hands on that copy of that ebook, or you want to book your own personal astrology, click that link down below and draw some cards. This video went a little long this week, a little sloppy Pisces energy, but eclipses are coming. The British are coming. The eclipses are coming. Neptune in Aries is coming. It's weird. It's a weird suspended animation. It can feel, I think there's going to be parts of this week that feel somewhat slow, some that feel fast, but like the outcome physically is just going to feel like kind of a more of the same. But that's a good reflector to see where you're vibrating at and what you're actually involved in and like doing and like working towards, that it's a call for change. It's a call for innovative steps to go into these deep spiritual reflections, and not just like take things at face value anymore. Like if most of us aren't willing to do that with the government anymore or the media anymore, why settle for it in our own lives? Why not like be our own detective and go deeper into that? It's not like overdoing it, like searching for a needle in a haystack. I think it's going to be more so from the suave fucking detective that doesn't have to go pull out the magnifying glass. Like the clues just like come in to your field and you lean into those more intuitively. So, well, that's not good. Not gonna lie, 7 of Cups, card of illusions. Is there something good in this cup? No, probably not. Like it's very Pisces, right? The illusionary energy. This is what I'm like concerned about for people, where it's like this Venus retrograde in Aries, Mercury fucking going shadow. It's in shadow, but it's going to retrograde in Aries. And then all that Pisces energy, it's like, what's real, what's not real, what's going to bite me, what's going to be okay. And it's honestly, it's hard because the answer is like none of it. It's kind of like needing to just reflect and go, okay, there's this thing popping up, all probably from the mind, the subconscious, right? Just like the fogginess of it. It's really just not about engaging with it. It's about being that king of wands, where it's like, do you know your vision and your passion? What have I been hammering on today? It's like, do you know that vision, that place that you're actually like wanting to go and going towards that? And this can be a really cool combination of the rooted, grounded of do what's valuable, what's working, not crazy change, but also like seeing the vision of like, what's the natural story arc that just makes sense, that the things that you're doing are going to grow into that, where it's like you can let the miracles and all the change happening on a positive spiritual level actually like turn silver into gold. It's like keep upgrading in that way, and don't overdo it. We don't need to overwork it. This is a card of like collaboration, the 3 of Pentacles, right? It's like a teamwork to make the dream work, but in the reverse, it's kind of like this Venus retrograde. It's like, don't try to like worry too much about overdoing it with projects, groups of people, the relationships of like trying to like force anything to happen. If anything, if something feels like draining right now, spiritually, emotionally, if it's like too hard to figure out, if it's like producing more problems than maybe what it's worth, at a minimum, it's probably like putting a pause like on it and going, well, yeah, maybe it comes back in the spring, but you know, I think it depends on the longevity of it. You know, if it was going good in the beginning, maybe it'll come back, but if it just has not went good since the initiation phase of it, there's been trouble and issues. This is not about like trying to like work it out right now. Hold your horses. Last one, King of Wands, but reversed. So this is a really beautiful time for people actually doing their spiritual work and open to receiving and growing and the beautiful things. It's a wake-up call for people that feel a spiritual inclination, but a call for, yeah, just that wake up of where things can be improved, more diligence. But for the people that, you know, base the reality on like manifest destiny, you got to go out and make it happen. Like, it can be a really frustrating time. So frustration's not our friend during this time. Produces conflict, you know, disagreements. Just like, this is like Venus retrograde in Aries is like where, especially with the Mercury that's going to retrograde too, also the same spot where Venus retrograde, it's like acts of passion, but like crimes done in passion. You know, it's like it could get intense. And so we really don't need a lot of intensity like right now. If anything, this is like letting things that have been too intense in any area of life, especially the areas that we put a lot of effort and value into, that we think about a lot, to actually like turn the burner off and like let things like cool down. Like it's okay. Like this is let the passion of any expression like come through from like those more deeper undercurrents of the subconscious, emotional, like personal, like release energies, where it's not an ego charge of like, I'm trumping myself up. What an interesting Freudian slip. I'm trumping myself up to like go do this thing and like gear up towards this thing. It's probably not the right direction. It's okay with like feeling into the emotions, you know, not to lead things, but to let us know what's going on that we need to like crack open, but also gently. You know, smash the egg on the counter in the bowl, like crack it open. And the other stuff, for anything else, like the logical day-to-day stuff, it's like we just keep doing what we're doing and being like happy about it. If anything, what I've discovered is like reflecting on the past, you know, and actually like going into those lessons and doing that healing work, it really puts more of a subconscious framed awareness of like how abundant and lucky we actually fucking are, and that we can be more in that vibration instead of like this crazy flipped out version that is getting projected that some people are at in this reality right now. So appreciate you all. I'll see you next week.